This is Jonas,
This is Andrew.
and we're here to make a confession. We're fans of shohin.
Da, da, da.
We both coincidentally have been finding ourselves more interested in smaller trees lately.
Yeah, and it's been really fun to kind of investigate the world of small trees. This is the first year I made a shohin bench here in the garden, and it feels out of place with all of the larger trees that we have floating around.
Yeah, we're again coming to you from Andrew's garden, Rocky Bonsai in Portland, Oregon, and it is a garden filled with some of the largest bonsai I've seen over here. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I like big, beautiful, deciduous trees. I have a few big conifers too, but a lot of big, beautiful, deciduous trees. And yeah, the shohin look very different here. I mean, I have these huge milled oak boards for my bench tops, and I don't know, the shohin just feel different on them.
It's really nice. Just having them on an actual wood surface is really great. And it's also different because you see so many different species in one small space. And I guess that's one of the highlights about having shohin around is that within a single bench, you're usually going to find quite a number of different species.
Yeah, so Jonas, how many shohin do you see floating around here?
Well, in general or in the dark? Because I know you've got a table full of them out there, but it's getting kind of hard to see past the fire pit right now.
Yeah, this is another fireside chat. We have a nice fire going, a beautiful evening, and yeah, we're excited to talk about little trees.
And so we've been kind of obsessed in figuring out where are the next generation of little trees going to come from. And so we've been brainstorming about where one would start if they were looking to start building a collection of small trees.
Yeah, and speaking of building a collection, we don't have collections of small trees.
This is a very germane topic for both of us.
Yeah, and you know, I think looking at the needs of the community, looking at what people are submitting to shows like the expo, looking at what people are doing, we feel like we have a void to fill, and how can we get our students to do it if we can't do it ourselves? And I think that's kind of where we're coming from.
That's right. Andrew had the awesome opportunity to speak with John Romano recently, which a number of you heard, who has focused his bonsai career on shohin. And every 2 years, I get to visit the Cal Shohin seminar. So there are plenty of great shohin resources out there, and we know there's great interest. And apparently that's been rubbing off on us lately.
Yeah, ironically, one of my starts in bonsai was shohin.
A really nice shohin.
Yeah. In St. Louis, I think they were looking for a way to diversify and do a convention that was different. And this was what in 2008, 2010, somewhere around there. They hosted a shohin convention, and that was the first convention I ever went to. Was the Bonsai Society of St. Louis shohin convention, and the very first workshop I've ever done was like the best workshop you could have ever imagined. It was an imported Itoigawa juniper, a shohin, grown by Urshibata Senior, and Taiga Urshibata Jr. was doing the workshop. So I got to work on a tree when I was in high school with Taiga that was grown by his dad, and I still have the tree sitting over there. It was like an insane workshop. It was awesome.
Taiga probably wasn't too far out of high school at the time.
I know but he spoke English and he was really cool. And so it was like my first workshop was with this bonsai, young, up and coming artist. And it was, I don't know, he was just really cool. Taiga has all this, bravado and yeah, it was fun. And I ended up with a really good tree, 10 years later.
And it's time to work on that tree again and figure out, are we going to make it technically fit into the shohin category?
I know.
Are we going to grow it up? It's been growing for a lot of years now.
Yeah, one of the craziest things about your visit has been my revelation about tree sizes. I think we talked in our last podcast about how I was shocked about what a medium tree, a shohin, really means. And in my garden with very large trees, the things that look like medium trees do not technically classify as medium shohin bonsai.
Yeah, the standard conventions are we have 20 centimeters or 8 inches and under is your shohin category. Your medium-sized trees typically max out at about 45 centimeters, which is roughly 18 inches. And then there's that kifu category, which is kind of the lower half of the shohin, or medium size, and that would be 20 to 30 centimeters. Large trees, of course, go on up from there to as big as, I guess, whatever you can fit in the door.
Yeah, and so all of my shohin, or what I thought were shohin, are 24, 25, 26 inches, and that doesn't make the cut. So I'm having these revelations about how small trees actually are. And the other thing, the reason why that came up was, we were trying to piece together maybe a shohin submission together, possibly for an upcoming show. And I brought out my shohin stands and I start arranging them, and I realize, wow, these are all of my shohin are kifu. They're a size larger, and so it's, I don't know.
The other thing I noticed was the smaller thing, because in general, I know the way I was taught about shohin for, a decade it must have been, was that shohin is all trees smaller than 8 inches. And to some degree, that may be true. However, when you go to the top shohin shows in Japan, there are actually many different subcategories. And one way in which they divide up the categories is by the size of the stand used to display the trees. And if you're using a smaller stand, obviously the trees are going to be a little smaller to fit on it. So as soon as I saw the shohin on Andrew's new shohin bench, I thought, well, these are kind of that max size shohin category, but really these next 4 trees you're not going to show them with those other ones because they're bigger. The visual weight's maybe 50% bigger. So actually you need a smaller box stand for those trees, a bigger one for those. And already Andrew's head was spinning about, I need more trees.
Yeah. It goes back to John Romano's point in the podcast a few podcasts ago, where he said, I asked him how many shohin does it take to make a nice box stand display. I think he said 30 or 40, something like that. And so I'm realizing I need to up my game here. My shohin bench compared to everything else in the garden is pretty weak. And I really like challenges, and I think shohin gives us a real fun, challenging opportunity to get a lot of things and put a lot of moving parts together.
Yeah, and for those who don't know what a box stand is, one of the more common or conventional ways to display shohin at small tree exhibits in Japan would be, imagine a square with a shelf in the middle of it, and you put 2 trees on the bottom shelf, you put 2 trees on that middle shelf, and then 1 tree up on top. So you can have up to 5 trees on that one box stand, and then the primary conventional way to show that would then be to have 1 tree off to the side of that. So it often takes 6 trees, and we'll get in maybe some other time to all of the different ways in which you want to arrange those trees, but the very short version is you want diversity of species, sizes, styles, colors, shapes, but all within the same relative visual weight, so that some trees don't dwarf the other ones within the display.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, it's a lot to think about. And that's why, because there's so many components, that's why they almost need to have so many regulations and different categories to make sense of all of that.
It helps make sense of it, and it helps make fair fights. It's, we have a heavyweight division, a welterweight, a bantam. We have all these different categories.
That's a good analogy. I like that.
Is it a pugilistic affair, the shohin world? I think of them as much nicer than that. But
yeah.
The starting point is really, I guess what comes into question with shohin is often the display. We go straight to the display when we think of shohin bonsai. Developing shohin is like developing other trees with, apart from the technical considerations, we do things differently at smaller scale, but we immediately go to, what are we going to display this with? How are we going to do it? What time of year is it going to be? What containers do we need? It's like take your normal bonsai considerations and add this additional level of the game that we put on top of it to orchestrate the coordination of it all.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to upping our game, and it's going to be fun to do this together. So how do we do this? I mean, we talked about that we want to do this a lot, but I'm not sure we actually pieced together too much how to do it. We've been shopping recently for some shohin, and I don't know. Let's tell people what we're looking for.
Yeah, It's funny, just an hour ago, I'm here visiting with Andrew, and we started out making some trades. I've been growing shohin pines for many years, and I have many of them, but Andrew is low on the number of shohin pines he has. So we're thinking, okay, well, it was like trading baseball cards. Well, if I give you one of those, maybe you give me two of those, but no, I don't want that one. So maybe how about one of these and three of those? And it was the funniest low-key horse trading that I've been a part of in a long time. It was kind of hilarious.
It was really fun.
And the idea is that we're kind of challenging each other. Okay, well, if you get this tree, you need to keep it and work on it, and I'll keep one of these and work on those, and we'll see what we end up with, and we'll see how the weather changes things. We'll see how our approaches
we can
and
help
the
each other
changes
along the way.
We've got lifelines.
You got one tree that I have almost the identical twin of, so we can compare and contrast how they grow differently, and that's going to be fun.
And so that's not our normal everyday experience. We're more likely to walk into whether a retail nursery or, like we were today, we got to tour a number of gardens throughout the Portland area, and one of the gardens happened to have quite a number of small trees in it.
Yeah, well, both of them did. We
actually, that's true. We saw a lot of small trees today.
Yeah, it was refreshing to see a lot of nice quality shohin out there. It gives me hope that we can piece together some good displays in the future.
So the first time we walked through Dennis Wojtyła's garden, we were thinking, what small trees are out there? And there were some absolutely beautiful shohin. And then we kind of did a second pass of the garden and said, are there any trees that have an interesting branch or an interesting section of a trunk or an interesting anything that we could then carve a shohin out of it if we had to? Whether it meant cutting it down, taking the top, the bottom, the side. We're starting to look at everything differently. I'm walking by hedges and trees. Oh, could we use that branch?
Yeah, can I air layer this? Can I where is this small tree in there? It's like you're ignoring the big trees that were normally like, oh wow, these are cool. And you're thinking differently. You changed your focus, your perspective. The fun thing about Dennis's garden is that inadvertently he's a shohin grower. Yeah. Whenever he gets little seedlings or things sprouting in the pots, or when he sticks cuttings and they start growing, this is in the pot of a larger bonsai. It will be a willow or a birch that volunteers itself and starts growing, or if he's taking and cutting off the same plant and sticking it in. And what Dennis does is he kind of just pinches it for years and years and years while it's in the pot of a parent plant, and he just makes these small little dense trees. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, imagine your bonsai is planted in an Anderson flat, and you end up growing the accent inside the box along with it. That's more or less what's happening. It's really cute.
Yeah. Some of my favorite shohin on my humble little shohin bench over there. My burgeoning shohin bench is a lot of birch volunteers that Dennis that have come out of Dennis's pots.
And so that's one of the first things that came to mind is it takes creativity to build a collection at any scale. But with shohin, because we're working so small, we really need an incredibly small, discrete piece of quality that we can build from. We're looking for one or more trunks. And it's funny, branches don't even come into the consideration in most cases. We're really looking for where will the base of the trunk be? Will it be a clump style or a single trunk? And we keep holding up our fingers, kind of doing that hang 10 thing to guesstimate. This is approximately 8 inches. We're going to be somewhere in the right ballpark.
This is going to be a little over. Let's pass on this. This is useless. This one's going to be under. Let's go for that.
Yeah. And so it just adds another thing to think about as you're walking through the garden. It's very easy when you walk through a nursery and think, do I like this one? Do I like that one? But now we're looking and evaluating. The canopy's too dense. Let's look inside there. Oh, what if we air layered the top 3 inches of this?
Maybe this will be great for like a little cascade stand outside of the box. Or
do you think it'd be 3 years or 5 years until we could get? Yeah.
The other fun thing that we saw at Dennis is not just some of these younger trunks that maybe had some potential, but was a lot. He has so many trees. Dennis has a huge collection, and he just has like a lot, like a little tiny, crab apple that's been in a pot. It probably hasn't been repotted for, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years, something like that. So it's got this tremendous age, nice bark, but it hasn't really been tended to very much. So it's very, very long, and we're looking at these small things like there's the age here. This is such a small tree with such tremendous age and character. But there's no there's nothing grown into it. And it's fun to kind of look at both the young trees and the old trees that are small in those
That's
different
right.
ways.
And we had just been through a number of other gardens in the Portland area earlier this morning, and we were primarily appreciating the trees. Isn't this a nice tree? Or what might I do with that? Or let's troubleshoot the health issues going on. Whereas Dennis has really invited our creativity for, what would we do with a branch like that? Or what might you manipulate that into?
Yeah, that was fun. Scott's garden was nice too. We went to see Scott Elster's garden.
Wow.
And he has a lot of nice shohin, and that was pretty fun to see.
Yeah, that really kicked us off, and he's got all kinds of different species, and we were really impressed at just how many different forms you can get within something that's so small.
Yeah, the fun thing about Scott is that Scott is very into native plants, and when Scott says native, native has many different definitions, but when Scott says it, he kind of means Pacific Northwest or West Coast kind of native plants. And the fun thing about Scott is because he's so into these types of plants and where they come from, he has this vision to create a native Pacific Northwest shohin display. So he has a redwood, he has 2 different types of alders, he has a mountain ash, he has red currant, he's got an Oregon white oak. He's starting to grab all these trees and shrubs and vines that grow all around us here, and start to create those 20-30 trees that he can then slim down to 5 for a box display.
I mentioned to Scott that his is one of a small number of gardens where when I walk along the aisles, I think, wow, I would really enjoy working with that tree and that tree and that tree and that tree, and on and on. It's the kind of garden that I kind of dream about. And I asked him, what does it take to create a great garden? And he kind of
laughed. Gave us some fun things to think about.
But after the briefest chuckle, he held out his finger and said, well, number one, I married late, so I was single for a long time, and I had extra time and money. And those extra resources meant if you're not going out all the time, you've got a lot more time to work on trees.
Yeah, he said he spent a lot of Friday nights, wiring a bonsai, not, buying someone dinner or something like that.
That's right. And then he jumped to number 2, which really felt like one of the keys, which was, he said it really comes down to opportunity. And he didn't use the word, but serendipity, in that he said, he didn't just walk into bonsainursery.com and buy everything. He said, well, this tree I got from so-and-so, and that one I grew over 20 years, and that one someone was looking for a home for that, and that tree I bought, but really I've had it 30 years now, and I grew all the branches from scratch. And every tree had its story, but he said the genesis or the starting point of each of these was the some happenstance that put that tree before him when he was in a position to acquire it.
Yeah, and the wonderful thing about Scott is that shows his activity level in the community. Scott's going to the fun gardens that are in town. He's going to the club and participating. He's doing
teaching,
conventions.
He's helping. He's volunteering. He's exhibiting his trees. And for those who don't know, you may have seen Scott's trees at U.S. national exhibits where they've won awards, at Pacific Northwest exhibits where they've won awards. He has a truly impressive collection.
It has to be one of the best collections in the North
area.
America.
There's no question. And then the third thing that Scott said was he's not afraid of long-term projects, of going deep. And he said he kind of gets the delayed gratification that bonsai provides, and I really want this tree to exist, and so he wanted to work on it. And now after, some of his projects are getting 20, 30 years old, and they're gorgeous.
Yeah, they're really fun. Everybody knows Scott for his large conifers, his large native conifers specifically. But something I've really enjoyed with my friendship with Scott is that he has a passion for developing deciduous too. He has several Japanese maples that he's just been slow growing in boxes and flats and things. And I love to go over and work with Scott because it's fun to see these trees progress, and he has a real passion for developing these trees slowly, like Ann Spencer, who he has a lot of her trees, and she's kind of done that a generation before us.
It reminded me a lot of those trees that Michael Hagedorn has been slow growing in his garden for so many years. They're very similar sizes. These trees are all about 20 inches tall, and they have gentle movement, and the canopies are about 70% of the way there.
Yeah, we were at Michael's garden. Do you remember any shohin there?
That is not a shohin garden. I'm going to guess Michael's attitude towards shohin resembles that of azaleas.
Yeah, yeah. He tells me that they're not bonsai, and of course he knows that they are bonsai. But what his point when he told me that once was that shohin and satsuki's, they have their own professionals, they have their own communities, they have their own exhibitions, they have their own different customers. They have, they're very separate groups within this larger overall group of bonsai.
That's right.
And in aesthetics too, shohin, the fun thing about shohin is they're not wabi-sabi. You don't see a lot of wabi-sabi in shohin. You see a lot of fun in shohin. You see things that are, attention-seeking, putting things in painted pots, for example, or pink pots, or very colorful glazes. We almost never see the type of artistic glazing that we see in shohin pots and larger pots in exhibitions like the Kokofu. And so shohin just has a lot more room for fun because like we've talked about, with a display space you have 6 feet and you can fill that with one large tree, 2 medium trees, or a whole bunch of small trees. And
up
shohin,
to 6.
yeah, so shohin really gives us, the room to play within that space.
Yeah, which, because there is so much room for small trees, that's what's been really focusing our attention on. Where will these be coming from? And so we would love to record an episode at a nursery the first chance we get. I'm very curious. The number of nurseries that are available up here in the Pacific Northwest is staggering for those that aren't in this area.
Yeah, fun. The only tree that I actually did buy today for shohin was from Matt Reel's place, the last garden that not the last, but the last one that we haven't mentioned. And I got a really fun, what is it? Kotohime, Japanese maple. And I think there's actually 3 shohin on it as we were looking, or maybe 2. Air layer, a couple on top. It's this tree. The tree started from an air layer, so it has a nice swelling around the base where it goes into the soil. It's about as thick as my thumb, but it's maybe 2 feet tall, something like that.
And so it's funny, is this is a tree that any good bonsai teacher would tell you to walk right past. And I think that applies to both of us as well. But if we're in our radar set to shohin mode, we both immediately look at the base and we say, we could cut.
I could trunk chop that. And
we could chop it down to about 2 inches. But then I look up and think, oh, there's a split up above. First you air layer off the top, then you cut it down below, and we get at least, and is there another branch? So this year we do the top air layer, next year you do the bottom cut, and then you have 2 or 3 trees out of one generous gallon can.
That's and it's good because we're going to need 2 or 3 more kotohime to give us the option to have maybe 1 for that box.
That's right. And so as we're looking at these trees, I'm kind of flashing through all of the shohin articles I've read in old issues of Bonsai Today magazine, which is probably the best resource I can think of that would have kind of some development articles of ideas about how do you really start from scratch and build something out on a small scale. I don't remember which issues, but there are some articles along the way that are really good examples of that.
Yeah, we need more people starting from scratch. Scott, another fun thing about Scott Elser is I got maybe a dozen or so of his shohin grown crab apples, and I'm so glad that we're sending you home with one of those because it will be fun to compare notes on that tree as well.
It's kind of the main benefit of growing trees in batches is I've always thought if you can share them out to different people, then if anything catastrophic happened,
your trees are still out there.
The line can live on. And so be careful where your trees go. But I actually do think about that.
Yeah, I like that.
We're all one lime sulfur experiment away from catastrophe.
Yeah. How else are we going to buy these or build this shohin collection? Do you think there's much room in genuine question? Do you think there's much room in nursery stock? Just going to a garden center and
Definitely.
Getting. What would you look for? What do you look for when you go to a garden center for shohin?
So here's what's so fun about shohin. If we break down what a very standard box display would include, you're going to have a formal upright, an informal upright, a semi-cascade, a clump style, and maybe another informal upright or something. And what that tells you is, what trees naturally grow in those different forms. And when I think of the absolute easiest starting point, look for anything that naturally takes a clumping form. And so when I think, a lot of nurseries carry contorted quince, a lot of nurseries carry just flowering quince. And those are just two that come right off the bat, where you can buy a 1, 2, or even 5-gallon can, cut it back to almost nothing, put it in a little pot, and you're a flush of growth away from having your rudimentary silhouette, depending on how much structure's in there.
Yeah, I think Shannon
Salyer,
and where is he?
Kentucky.
He's Kentucky. I learned from him that he does a lot of shopping at nurseries.
Oh, that's great.
And that's where he generates a lot of his shohin material. And I thought that was fun. It's next time, I always go to, as we talked about in our last podcast, I always go to nurseries and I'm shopping for big deciduous trees that are going to be 3, 4, 5 feet tall, something like that. As a conventional bonsai. I can't wait to go to a nursery now and have the exact opposite focus when I'm looking for something.
Yeah, it'll be really neat. Yeah, you mentioning Shannon's a good point, since he's one of our really good resources for people who are making trees available for people, and really good quality starts. One cool thing about shohin that may be a little different is I've taught so many times that you typically don't make a big bonsai by starting with a small bonsai and just adding time. You start with a small tree and you add sacrifice branches and some really serious growing before you get to the trunk. Then you start on branches, and it's a more staged process. Whereas with shohin, you really can cut something down to a reasonable silhouette, and it's a good placeholder until you have a better or bigger tree at that size. And honestly, having one weak link in a display is better than having a missing tree in the display. And so we're both focused on, what can we do right now, and then what can we do longer term to have an improved version. So it's funny, we're looking for how do we get that silhouette so we can start playing with the displays, and then how can we build from there.
Yeah, it's fun. I think you told me earlier this week, the best shohin come from kifu, the trees that are cut
for
down.
junipers, yeah.
And that's a really fun thing to think about, finding and Suthin, oh my gosh, another person we can mention who does, probably some of the best shohin work in the country.
Yep.
A lot of his progressions, if you go and look at his website, are he's taking a medium-sized tree or really kind of a bush or it's something quite large, and he's cutting it down. He's making these really killer shohin, and his progressions, I think, are really inspiring because they're it's the starting
the
point.
Transformation is radically different from the finish.
Radically different. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's what's fun, and that's what you see in a lot of shohin demonstrations is, someone will be starting with something much bigger and ending up with something much smaller.
Yeah.
Really fast. And junipers are one of the absolute best starting points for that. And so that was something else Andrew and I were looking at, were a lot of junipers that were maybe 12, 15 inches tall, and could we get that down? Maybe if we planted it an angle, maybe if we gin the top a little bit.
Like my taiga juniper,
Yes,
for example,
for
from the workshop. That tree is, I think, 9 inches.
Oh,
it's a really annoying.
You don't need to admit to that on there.
It's a really annoying 9 inches right now,
and so we could either make it a very compelling kifu or come up with some ideas for getting it just under where we need it to be.
Yeah. I like the options there. The fun thing about that is, I do think we need more kifu too, and that's shohin. If shohin doesn't get enough attention, then kifu. Oh my gosh, nobody talks about kifu.
No one talks about kifu, and I remember when I first started hearing about it was from Boone, and I thought, well, do we need another category? It's a subcategory of medium. The other categories are relatively exclusive.
Yeah.
What is this subcategory of medium that is kifu? And it's really fantastic. At a lot of I don't know about a lot, but at least some of the shohin exhibits in Japan, you will see not just the 20 centimeter and under category, but you're going to see a lot of kifu and sometimes chuhin trees, but typically that kifu size. And I think it's such a good size because while shohin bonsai are often compact silhouettes, kifus just being that little bit bigger can suggest some of the structure, movement, and often even grace that you see in larger trees that's hard to represent at the smallest scale.
Yeah, some of the trees that I'm enjoying the most in my garden right now are kifu. I think they're They're I don't know. I showed you a few trident maple kifu that I have. The taiga juniper is really fun. It's a fun category, and I don't know. I think it's probably easier to piece together a kifu display because you just need two, with a really good accent, and
or maybe one kifu and one shohin. And that's the other fun thing. For all the talk about box stands, you can display a shohin with one. You can create a shohin display with a single tree. You can do it with 2. You can do it with 3. You can do it with 5. You can do it with 6. And so we've got a lot of options for how to put something together.
Yeah, that circles us back to display, which is the
driver.
The driver of
Oh, and I didn't
shohin.
mention mini bonsai. There's another category, the smallest one at the big shohin shows like Gafu 10, where I forget the numbers, but it might be closer to 11 or 12 trees in a single display.
Yeah.
But they're all about 3.5 inches tall. They're fantastic.
It's fun. Gafu 10 is so fun, and for those of you who don't know about it, I've actually never been, but I feel like I've been because one, I have several catalogs, but two, you can go on YouTube. You can go to Gafu 10 on YouTube every year, and if that's a great way to spend an afternoon is to watch someone walk through those exhibitions. But the thing I like about the proportions in Gafu 10 is maybe 10% of them are shohin, maybe 30% of them are kifu, and then maybe 60% of the displays are box, large and medium sized shohin, and it's fun that they include other categories, even though it's the shohin convention.
Yeah, for the expo we broke it down into just the 3 categories. We lumped the kifu in with the shohin, and I believe there are some kifu and some shohin in there. I know there are at least some shohin because I submitted a shohin display, and we'll find out if it gets accepted or not. I'm not totally convinced right now. We'll see.
Yeah, I did too, and so that's just another reason that when I was piecing together trees for this submission, because we both did it because we knew it was a weak category. We weren't getting submissions, and we want to represent that part of the community, and
that's kind of, I think, what put it independently in each of our minds is, well, we have some small trees, and it is fun when there's more sizes in an exhibit. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, maybe we can piece one together. Maybe we have enough to pull it off, and
so then we start thinking, well, let's see. Yeah, you have that one tree's kind of nice, but 5 more, I don't know. We'll see. And then it's coming down to, do I have a show pot for that tree?
Yeah,
do I have a stand for that tree? Do I have a box stand for the pot for the tree?
Yeah, and everything changes when you take this thing that you think is a shohin and then you put it on the box stand, and it's like, oh, that's not a show. And you start measuring, and then you start seeing how they relate in size to one another, because when they're sitting on a bench, you might not necessarily pick up that one might be a small shohin, one might be a larger shohin, and once you start putting it on a stand, it was so revealing to me
instantly. Andrew had to check in with me. He had everything all planned until he started putting him on the stand to take pictures. Then he started texting to me and said, I need a new stand.
Lots of stands, lots of trees. But it's fun. It's shohin is so playful and fun that it's adding a new excitement and a new focus to my building of the collection and thinking about display.
And you really put your finger on the challenge of how many trees are needed to put these displays together. It's one reason why shohin clubs are such a good idea, because that's when people can start combining and mixing and matching. And whether or not that makes it into an exhibit, it starts giving you concrete examples where you can see your tree next to good and bad complements, which can guide what do you want to grow, what do you want to shop for, what do you want to develop, or what do you want to just keep at arm's length because it's not going to fit in with what you've been with the rest of your program.
And so I'm thinking now, I'm thinking about my shohin bench, and I have I just got 2 great trees that are from you with our trades that are going to be the king, the black pine on top of those box stands. I have a bunch of deciduous. I have a bunch of smaller deciduous ones in the works, so I need some larger of the shohin.
Yeah, you've got a good start on kind of 2 categories, the maximum size and then maybe 2 notches down. So a number of trees will be right at 7.5, 8 inches, and you'll have another display where they're all around, and then maybe 5.5 inches.
You know what I have 0 of is broadleaf evergreens. That's a very big problem, and that's something we need to talk about because.
Well, let's start there in our material search. Do you want to introduce broadleaf evergreen shohin into this garden?
I do, even though this is a deciduous garden, and the majority of my shohin bench, probably 60% of it or 2/3 of it is going to be deciduous shohin. To make a beautiful box display, I'm going to need some broadleaf evergreens. Just like I have, a few junipers, I have a few pines now, thanks to you, and my client Christian, who's wonderful at growing shohin pines.
So, what broadleaf evergreens like Portland?
Everything, everything likes Portland.
Olives?
Olives do pretty okay here.
Okay, not super strong.
We were driving down by Dennis. There's a olive orchard that's planted there. Make Oregon olive oil, which is fun. They do the colder varieties like Arba quinoa or whatever that one's called.
Right.
But olives do okay here. It's probably not the best environment for the more tropical broadleaf evergreens that we use, like kinzu, the kumquat, or gardenia. But they're shohin. I could put up like a mini greenhouse and they keep them nice and warm.
As long as they're greenhoused over your long fall, winter, spring.
Yeah. I wonder if people, and this is where we should ask friends like, actually I did ask this, John Romano, he's in Rhode Island, and he keeps his kinzu, and I'm not sure if he had a gardenia, but he keeps his kinzu and he has like a kitchen, like a kitchen window, awning kind of bay window kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's like a mini greenhouse.
And so, olive, kinzu,
Kumquat. Olive, kinzu,
which is dwarf kumquat,
right? Gardenia.
Gardenias
are great.
Prenma. Those are kind of deciduous, I guess, if it gets cold enough.
Yeah. The Prenma that they mostly use traditionally in Gafuten is musk maple, which is not a maple at all. It's Premna japonica.
Right.
And that's a wonderful, wonderful tree, but that's deciduous.
Yeah.
So kinzu,
azalea. Are you gonna deign yourself to allow an azalea on the property?
Well, I have a few. I have this.
That's true. You've got a beautiful one right behind us. It's just about to open up,
but not as many as I should.
Can you air layer off all those branches and make little shohin forests?
I could, but that's a nice little forest. I don't want to mess with that one.
Please don't mess with it. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. You know what I would really love? Not bonsai looking shohin azaleas, but in Michael's azo spruce that we saw today, he has that small azalea growing in it. It's like, it looks like an azalea. It's a very maintained, shrub. It's a small shrub, but it's a dwarf. It's a kokenzai, and it's beautiful. I think a few of those in shohin pots would be just marvelous. But yeah, going back to broadleaf evergreens, azaleas. In Gafuten, I always see them exhibited. A whole display of azaleas. I've never seen.
Yeah, I can't. I imagine it's happened, but I don't think of it as a very common.
Yeah, they don't include them
to mix in with the other bonsai.
Yeah, which is strange. I wonder why they don't do that.
Because azalea are their own subculture.
Yeah,
that's
exactly. So silverberry, we see gumi a lot.
Oh, gumi, of course. The Elaeagnus is fantastic.
One of the most common ones that we see
what about Mayumi,
in Japan.
Pyrrhus?
Which one?
Pyrrhus.
Oh, Pyrrhus.
Mayumi.
That's fun. Yeah, that's in the modern bonsai.
We've seen those.
One of the most common ones that they use is star jasmine. Or is it winter jasmine?
Winter jasmine.
Yeah,
Trichlospermum asiaticum.
Yeah, and that's one that is almost every other box stand there.
Those are
and
fantastic.
We have,
if you're listening, please grow them.
Yeah, who's growing them right now? We need someone who needs to be.
We know a lot of people have them, and I've seen a lot of small ones out.
Yeah,
especially back east. I don't know of anyone out west.
Yeah, we need someone to be like Michael was with Chochibai. We need someone to just get passionate about jasmine.
It'll take a while, but we'll be patient. Just check in with us in 10 years.
Yeah, that brings up a good point that John Romano said in the podcast I did with him is that the shohin community in Japan heavily relies on everyday practitioners and hobbyists, people who like you who are listening or like us, who just love bonsai and have a lot in our backyards and just regular people from the community like Scott Elser with these crab apples was such a big stimulus to the shohin professionals like Shibata.
Yeah, I'm just running through my head now where our other starting points are going to be, other than retail nurseries.
It's tough. But, I mean, I guess...
Otherwise, starting from scratch is the long game, and I've been doing plenty of that, but I think it'll be maybe just checking in with all of our pre-bonsai growers. Even if they're growing for larger trees, there might be a lot of options for layering or cutting down there, since the pre-bonsai growers often focus on the species that we're already interested in.
Yeah, looking back at the St. Louis Shohin convention, I'm remembering where they got material. And they relied on importing, which is the very hard way to go. But they imported these junipers, which required 2-year quarantine. So they were really planning this pretty far ahead. They imported white pines that were grafted on black pine. But that's a fairly easy one among the hard task of importing to bring in.
Yeah, but I think a lot of our growers will have them, and I imagine that a bunch of people will speak up. I know Left Coast Bonsai is working on a number.
Yeah,
it'll
be
a
fun
while
to see
that
those
they're
tomorrow.
working on it.
Yeah.
I know there's others out there across the country. Ooh, which brings up another vector for starting shohin, and this came up at Farm to Table over the weekend. When's the last time you saw a collected tree as a compelling shohin?
Yeah.
Not a collected tree that's small or young, but a collected, compelling shohin.
We might have seen one at Michael's. He has he likes these. He calls them orchids. These small bonsai that he puts on some abstract thing like a bent or melted board, and then he attaches it to a shade cloth structure. And he has one that's probably the most twisty young shimpaku, or it's a shimpaku now, but twisty young juniper that I've seen. And it's a tree that Backcountry Bonsai collected. They called it Duncan because it looked like a twisty Dunkin' Donut.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, Duncan is this real twisty. I think it would classify as shohin, even though it's not in a pot. It's probably just about 8 inches.
The height is fine, but it's so broad it reads a little bigger than that. But either way, it would fit in a show focusing on smaller trees. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But actually, that brings up a good point. It's not uncommon to start with a collected tree and then root graft to remove a section and just find the best quality. So it could be that relatively small features, this would be silly, I hadn't thought of that, but are there features on our collected material that we can either root graft or air layer away to propagate?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of excited to go to Randy Knight's again soon because I'm going to have a very different focus this time.
I wonder if I need to stay another day now.
Yeah, maybe you should. Maybe. But yeah, that would be fascinating to
It's not the normal thing you're thinking about at Randy's garden.
No, it's the opposite.
That's right.
And the thing, if you talk to someone like Randy, or if you talk to Backcountry, or you talk to Anton, they'll always tell you that the big trees, they're a dime a dozen. They're out there. Finding a small tree with interest it's
hard. You just don't see that a lot.
Yeah, you don't see that.
I've seen a few. Actually, I have seen a handful of very compelling shohin in the mountains that were, at least to me, radically uncollectible, as in a chunk of Sierra juniper, Rocky Mountain juniper, completely wedged into the mountain.
What made them not collectible? They were just...
I don't really go into the whole carving through granite thing.
Yeah.
I haven't been there.
It's not
when there's a single root that goes goodness knows how many feet into the crack.
So I guess a good question for someone like Randy would be, are you just not seeing as much of them, or are you seeing them?
The effort,
they're
or do they just not live?
Yeah.
Or do they not have the resources because they've been so radically yanked from their homes?
It's probably yes to all of those
it would not surprise me. Because it's not like no one would want to collect a tree. In Japan, that I know of, you just don't see collected trees in shohin. Not with any regular... Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure they're out there, but it's not the average tree.
Very, very rare. These are trees that have to be grown, and that's why it was a fun topic.
Actually, I should ask and find out if there's any good collected options in Japan, because we might have something similar. It could be that a lot of our domestic deciduous species are great candidates for collecting. There are so many oaks, shrub-like things that we find on the sides of roads that, as long as they're woody, they might actually be a pretty compelling option for sure.
Yeah. That was another thing that came up at Farm to Table. Our friend Maciek brought up a great point that, sometimes a seedling in a forest, especially the forest that we have here in the Pacific Northwest with such a dense biomass, the seedling starts to grow, and it has to grow through layers of moss and chunks of rotting wood on the ground, and it creates all these little twists and turns in it, and then it grows ramrod straight. And when you're walking in the forest, you just think you see this straight trunk little seedling, but then you go and dig around the base, and it has all this crazy movement. Maciek just was telling me about this group of alders that he went and collected, and it's like they have all the first little bends. They didn't have to wire anything to get them started, and that could be a really fun starting point to where you thicken something like that up, and then we can start to use it.
It's funny now that I think about it. For a lot of redwood bonsai are these tall, skinny, straight things, but when you dig down a little bit, that's where these broad bases emerge under the surface. You never walk along and see the bonsai just sitting there. They're always buried down a little bit.
Yeah. Where have you seen the shohin redwoods come from? Are they mostly?
They all come from Mendocino Coast Bonsai in Point Arena, California.
Yeah,
where Bob Scheiman has them.
Yeah, what are they? Because they're all like these little Hershey Kiss Mount Fuji looking things. Like
when you're walking along and you see a skinny little 2-inch redwood sticking up out of the ground, down underneath that there'll be a little Hershey's Kiss.
Crazy.
Yeah, and that's why there's a big cut on the top of just about every one.
Okay,
yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, and that goes for the bigger ones too.
Huh.
And so you look for road construction crews. You look for people tearing these things out for whatever the species are.
Yeah, redwood, I think, of our native plants, that, and we saw one at Scott's, and we've seen a lot of people do it. I think maybe there's one at Peter's place.
It's a fantastic one at Peter T's garden. Randall in the areas made a great one.
That's such a great native species for bonsai, I think.
Yeah,
because
really
you get such high density with the pinching techniques that you can do. And
yeah, that's right.
That's one that we don't see in Gafu 10, but we might see in some American shohin shows if we ever get those.
Yeah, it reminds you, I don't know that I've seen a lot of Atlas cedar shohin.
Do you think that would make a good one?
Boy, I'm just trying to think what style the tree would be.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool to have a semi-cascade Atlas
The color
cedar.
would be nice in a box display.
The color would be fantastic. I think I just made up a really hard challenge for myself.
Yeah, that sounds... let's do it. that sounds fun.
Or you tell us about it. Because
yeah. Do you think you could have... I mean, this is kind of unusual, but it's reminiscent of like a exposed root semi-cascade white pine. It has the same color foliage. I wonder if you could do the same thing with an Atlas cedar.
It can be done. I just don't know if it's easy enough to make it worth doing. We'll see. Could be very easy. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's one to put in the Explore box.
Man. Yeah, and so speaking of using the cedars, Andrew mentioned some of the things that make shohin bonsai fun. We can use any species we want for any size bonsai, but for some reason we see more species in shohin than other sizes because we need that variety. We need the variety, and we don't have as far to go. In other words, we're not teaching ourselves deep Escalonia techniques or viburnum techniques. We're saying, oh, look, that thing's woody. Let's cut it back. Cool, it's sprouted.
Let's get a little stump. Let's put some some twigs on it.
Oh, look, it's a Burberry.
Make it dense.
Great.
Yeah.
And there's some great giant Burberries, but this would be a wonderful thing to make a shohin because it gives you thorns, it gives you deciduous, and it gives you that wonderful
flowers
color.
and fruits.
Yeah, flowers and everything. So
yeah. What flowers and fruits do we need to see more of? I'm going to say one first, and then I want you to name a few. But to me, Princess Persimmon.
That's the star.
Yeah, that's the star. We need a ton of Princess Persimmon shohin.
Yeah, and I've mentioned it before. My first fall show I visited in Japan was Taikon 10, which is held roughly Thanksgiving. And what will immediately strike you if you haven't been to a Japanese fall exhibit is every other accent plant in the room is a fruiting tree. It'll be deciduous with a bunch of twigs and some fantastic fruit. So if you're going to open up with Princess Persimmon, I'm going to add crabapple. And that's a lot of different crab apples.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love in Gafuten the the yellowish orange ones.
The small ones that are
Those
about
are-
pea-sized?
Oh my gosh, those are so striking. I need some of those. You have those, right?
Should I tell Andrew that I'm growing them? Yes, I do have
Okay.
a bunch of those.
More trades
That
in the
is a
future.
Malus sieboldii,
Yeah.
or Siebold's crab, a.k.a. Zumi.
Have you actually seen those color fruit on yours yet, or have they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was told they wouldn't start fruiting for 15, 20 years, and they pretty much started fruiting immediately. Crazier yet, I get a lot of seeds from those, and
Are they pretty true to seed?
The seeds sprout. So if you have a 6-year-old tree, it'll
Oh,
fruit,
my
and then
gosh.
those things fruit. And one tree that's 5, 6 years old might have a few hundred seeds on it.
Well, you just, we were talking about I need a reason to come down to California before the expo. Maybe loading up with a few of those and doing some more trades.
I forget what I did with
is
this
the
year's
reason.
batch. I had 2 large batches of seeds. It was interesting. One tree was genetically significantly different than the others. It's healthier, it has larger leaves and larger fruit, but it grows vigorously, and it's still a very minuscule crabapple. The fruit was maybe 10% bigger than the others.
What size trunks do you have on those? Are they pinky size yet?
The biggest swelling on the biggest one might be pinky size. I'm finding they're just swelling up very slowly.
Okay.
The standard
interesting.
crabs swell up really fast. I have some maybe 2-year-old crabs that are already pencil sized probably.
Yeah. Yeah. So are we just doing fruiting right now?
Yeah, and so another one
Okay.
came to my mind. What do you got?
Just fruiting. Well, there's 2. They're kind of the same-ish plant with opposite colors. I think we need more beauty berries and we need more Ilex serrata.
Okay, I'll
winter
take
berries.
beautyberry because that's what I was going to say.
Okay.
And that would be the Calicarpa family, most known for the purple fruit, but there are also white-fruited Calicarpa.
Oh, yeah,
I
that's
happen
right.
to have both in the garden.
Wow. What are your shit? What are they called? They're the
Calicarpa.
Calicarpa.
beautyberry. Yeah.
What do your beauty berry look like? Are they similar
They're
size?
3-foot tall shrubs. They're
Okay.
not bonsai. I don't think I could
Okay.
possibly make a bonsai, but
Okay.
I can take cuttings from them. I haven't tried sprouting from seed, but they take from cuttings easily from what
Okay.
I've seen.
Yeah, the purple is such a striking. You
That's
don't
a
see
classic.
many colors.
The
You
white's
see a lot of
pretty
reds.
crazy. It's a pure white.
Wow.
I'll have to show you that.
Yeah, that's it.
They're both tea flowers, which is why I have them in the garden for tea ceremony.
Oh,
but,
fun. Yeah, so we need the beauty berry, but I'll take
and then the classic.
I'll take winterberry. I have a lot of winterberry in the
Winterberry's
garden.
great.
And I have a couple on my shohin bench that are started. They're Telperion plants.
I had a fantastic winterberry 15 years ago that was really old, had amazing provenance, but because I've made questionable life decisions, I no longer have that tree.
Bummer.
Someone has it. I don't remember who has it now.
Oh,
It was
fun.
a really interesting tree in that the male and the female were growing almost fused together in the same pot.
Wow, that's a fun.
I put on gloves and operated. I successfully separated them and grew it for a whole lot of years and found apparently it's really hard to close wounds on ilex.
It is unless you buy kirikuchi.
The
Kirikuchi,
kirikuchi
I'll
naru.
show you tomorrow in the daylight. The kirikuchi closes ilex wounds beautifully, really fast, a year or 2.
Nice.
But yeah, we need the fun thing about that I found with winterberry is that for cuttings they're so easy. It's one of the easier
nice.
plants to take. You do need a male plant most of the time to get fruit, but that's easy. But yeah, they're the bright little red berries. They're pretty unbeatable. Okay, give us another fruiting.
Okay, well, we mentioned the dwarf kumquat before, kinzu, and that gets us into a category of fruiting trees that require greenhousing for most people in North America.
Yeah. The dwarf kumquat. I think Shannon might be growing a few of those.
I think some people in Florida are. I've seen them down in L.A. What's so great about them is broadleaf evergreen with fruit, and so it's, as far as I know, it is one of the most common broadleaf evergreens you'll see in Japan because they look absolutely gorgeous in fall and winter when you've got the fruit on them.
They're
There's
very cute.
Deep green leaves, bright orange
Yeah.
flowers, super tiny, smaller than a grape.
Yeah, those are fun. And I'll mention another kind of warm, greenhousey one. We need some gardenia.
Gardenia. I
and-
thought of another one too.
Yeah, gardenia will be super, super fun. I've never grown gardenia. Have you ever grown that?
In the landscape, but it's funny, it's just not warm enough for them to thrive where I live. They'll live, but we don't get the growth in the flowers.
so you
And
need
this
a
is even
greenhouse for these
landscape
too.
trees. I'd need a greenhouse in summer, and I don't know if I could greenhouse them year-round.
I wonder if I know people put their kinzu in the house, just inside during the winter when they live in a cold climate. I wonder if you could do the same with gardenia. I'm guessing you could.
I wonder. Technically, Elaeagnus have fruit. We think of it as just a non-fruiting broadleaf evergreen, but they do have fruit on them. Sometimes you see that in shows.
I thought of another fruit. This is going back to deciduous.
Huh?
But
Akebia?
that's
oh, the
kind
katsura with those big red fruit that open up, the little compound fruit. What are those?
Oh, I don't know. The one that the one that I was thinking of, I forgot what it was. Oh no, it's a unanimous. It has that weird fruit. It's like
yes.
And you see a lot of those in the.
Yeah, those are fairly common.
Oh, another one very similar to crabapple is hawthorn.
Oh yeah, Crataegus.
So there's actually we listed off a dozen fruiting plants, something like that. There's a lot of them out there.
There are a lot, and I think any of those would be great options.
Yeah, we need more fruiting. What about flowering?
This is our transition plant. One of my all-time favorite shohin I saw, I forget, not that many years ago, Mr. Sasaki, who is one of the tip-top best shohin growers in Japan, took a Kokufu prize for his shohin display.
Oh, what do you have?
These were giant shohin. They were all a little bit too big to be normal shohin. I believe they built an extra big stand for this, and they were
sounds
just
like a Rakuyo
awesome.
Size shohin display.
Yes, and so you might have to talk to this guy.
Yeah.
By the time the trees get just a couple inches bigger, the amount of complexity you can get in the branch density is out of this world. And one of my favorite trees in that display was a rose. Because you get the hips in fall.
Yeah, the rose hips are really, really nice.
And so you get the flowers.
And Shannon grows a lot of rose.
He does. So
we need to get some rose from
If someone
Shannon.
can point us to a rose, I would love to grow one of those dwarf roses. They're just fantastic.
Yeah, transitioning to flowering plants, a plant that does fruit, but we don't really enjoy the fruit, is chochibai, which Michael's
Of course. Yeah, we really don't enjoy the fruit, do we?
yeah, that gets plucked off long before. But chochibai, they're often flowering during the time of the exhibition in winter.
Well, this is a crazy thought, but it would actually not be hard to show them with fruit. We wouldn't want to, but you actually could.
Yeah.
It does not, they're always blooming. You just leave them alone.
Yeah, it would have to be the
appear.
fall blooms.
So, for those who don't know, my chochibai kind of bloom every day of the year.
Really?
I keep hearing, doesn't matter the color, but the red-orange ones, I don't know that there's a day when we're not picking flower buds. And I'm December, January, February, all year long. You do get a little more in spring and a little more in fall, but it's just there's color on those things.
Have you noticed that just with the red ones? Because I know the white ones here only flower in the spring versus the red ones can flower throughout the growing season.
The white ones also flower throughout the year, but not to the degree the red ones.
Okay,
I'll have
so
to
it's a
send you
little
some
less.
pics along the way. But the red ones are pretty intense. That's a regular task, is to keep on top of those. But think of this. It just didn't occur to me. Some people don't have meaningful winters. I could show chochibai in full leaf, giving me the broad cap. I could do flowers and leaves in winter.
Well, that might be interesting because maybe then that you don't need as many broadleaf evergreens.
And if I don't want to go to the effort of greenhousing something, then I can let something play double duty. Pluck it if you want or leave it. Now, I don't know if that's a gauche thing to do, but I'll have to check.
I don't know about that one.
I'll have to check with the shohin bosses about this. John Romano's shaking a fist somewhere.
Yeah.
You will not.
Yeah. Let's transition to conifers for a little bit. Not my world, but of course we know pines, black pine, white pine, and juniper, shimpaku.
Someone must have a red pine shohin.
I've made
a couple.
I think I have one that's maybe getting a little too tall, but
a friend of mine has the best red pine trunk I ever grew. I haven't seen it in a year or two. I'm really curious what it's looking like.
Yeah, we saw a lot of small red pines at Scott Elser's. That's another badge
those
tree
were
that
so
he
fun.
has. But so unusual conifers. It's within the juniper family. We all talk about and love Shimpakus, but Tosho makes a nice shohin.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of Tosho in Japanese exhibits. I don't know why. I wonder if it's just inherently hard or if nobody wants to field grow Tosho.
I think in the books I have, I see maybe one in every 10
You just
displays.
don't see a lot.
Yeah.
But something you see a lot of that I'm really excited for is Cryptomeria.
Yeah.
Sugi is a fantastic species for
Yeah, we were
shohin.
just at Matt's today. Again, another way
Yeah.
on how you shop. Maybe Matt just had this huge, probably 5 foot tall.
Oh, it's taller than
Cryptomeria.
me. Yeah, I forgot to ask him about that.
Yeah, and it Jonas is like, I want to buy this just because there's 15 air layers out of here that I can make.
I've done it
some fun
before.
shohin.
Yeah, I love air layering Cryptomeria.
Yeah, didn't you say they're super easy?
Yes, I have yet to find a species easier to layer than Cryptomeria.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
They're great.
Like, do you think
even
they're
if you
easier
get-
than a maple?
Oh, it's no contest.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
Like easier than a Japanese maple?
Many, many times I've air layered Japanese maples, and the first year I get callus, I reopen it, and the second year I get roots and remove it. So in general, Japanese maples are great, but Cryptomeria, even if you get 3 straggly roots, sometimes you can just cut it and plant it and it'll grow.
Wow.
They're pretty great. And then the bases swell. More than any species I've layered, you get flare at the base of the trunk
Yeah.
to an incredible degree. Like, no other species does that.
Yeah,
like
you know,
Cryptomeria.
going along with Cryptomeria, something that looks very similar to a Cryptomeria is the Hinoki, or the Seka Hinokis.
Seka Hinoki is probably the most popular species for shohin conifers right now. So
Yeah.
we're going to need a lot of those. And, I guess bigger Hinokis would be a little bit tougher. But I think someone out there can make a Sawara shohin. I think kind of a moss cypress or Sawara cypress.
Yeah, maybe the
I think.
Tsukumo could work well.
I think any of those would work. You don't see that.
Yeah, I don't think I have.
I'm making a skeptical face, but I
Yeah.
mean, I can't think of a reason why not to use any of those, but they're not common in Japan or here from what I've seen.
Yeah, I have a friend in St. Louis who has my friend Jesse has a nice, I think it's still shohin, Hinoki cypress.
We need to go to a European shohin event. Let's call up Morten Albeck and find out what his recommendations are
where
for
to go.
shohin.
That would be fun. Yeah, the trophy has, it seems like a competitive shohin category every year.
That's because Mark and Rita show at the event, and they always
fun.
put on some of the best shohin displays in Europe. And for those who don't know, the Coopers, if you go to any show in the UK and you see an out-of-this-world shohin display, just introduce yourself to Mark and Rita and thank them for doing such a great job, because the odds are good it's theirs.
What are we missing? Any shohin conifers that are traditionally used? We got Seka Hinoki. We got our junipers, our 3 pines.
Yeah.
What are we
I
missing?
still
We
wanna
got
see a red pine.
Cryptomeria. I feel like there's another one. I just can't place it.
And
Someone listening to the podcast is shouting one. at us
yes,
right now.
and we have no excuse for not remembering, because it's actually not quite midnight yet. This is
Yeah.
early for us.
Yeah, we should be sitting down with a Gafu 10 book.
Yeah.
But maybe there's not. Oh, do you ever see Taxus? Do you ever see you?
Ooh,
shohin?
I don't see a lot of taxus, but again, no reason not to, which
Yeah.
brings up hemlock.
Yeah, I John Eads at Left Coast just got his Anton's final haul.
Yeah.
Who retired from Yamadori hunting here in the Pacific Northwest, and I was shopping for shohin over there, and I was hoping to find a small shore pine or a
short
mountain
pine,
hemlock,
actually.
and I couldn't find one. I was so bummed.
Okay, so as a Californian, I guess I have to mention Monterey cypress. I don't know that I've seen a shohin Monterey cypress,
Oh,
but I
weird.
have seen the pygmy Mendocino cypress done as
Yeah.
shohin.
Yeah, interesting.
So that would be 2 options.
Yeah, we talked about if we're leaving tradition, we talked about redwood, which would be fun.
Yeah, and so apart from the cypress and redwood, we also have a variety of oaks in California. I don't know that I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of. I have seen valley oak, Kifu size, maybe down to shohin, but I've definitely worked on live oak shohin.
Oh, I thought of another conifer. Do we ever see Azo spruce shohin? I have a
Boy.
Kifu one. But,
Yeah, you don't see Ezo, do you?
No, maybe
I don't see why not.
Maybe occasionally there's maybe 1 in 20 or 1 in 30 Gafu 10
Maybe
displays.
more upright
maybe have
style one or twin trunk or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good question.
I mean, it has such great characteristics for shohin. It has really
Yeah.
nice, dense.
Which brings up
foliage.
Colorado blue spruce.
Yeah, that would
shohin.
never work. That is not one to try.
And hopefully you just dared someone into proving us wrong, because
Yeah.
I'd love to see it, because the color would be fantastic.
Ironically, my friend and colleague Reed from BSOP, he has I think a big leaf maple shohin. I'm pretty sure that's a shohin, not a kifu.
Oh, cool.
And the fun thing about big leaf maple, it's like the biggest. It's like the maple, like the leaf is like the size of your face. It's like 12 inches long.
That's great.
In the landscape. But Reed has experimented with defoliating it. I gave him that idea, and he's getting the leaves down to Japanese maple size. So I think he's working on a big leaf maple shohin, which would just be the most hilarious.
If you could do that,
native.
I would love it. And then I'm gonna buy him a liquid amber and see if he can shrink that down too.
That's another tough challenge. I feel like have we gone through all the conifers? Spruce, hemlock, fir. I guess we don't really see fir. Cryptomeria.
Fir would be hard. Yeah. Well, we've got a big start on that.
Yeah.
I wonder, have people done the eastern white cedars or the western cedars?
I haven't seen one.
I don't see why we couldn't do those. I think those would work. I mean, the leaves are
Yeah.
enormous, but if we do the technique, train them like you train a hinoki, where you cut back to your 1/4 3/8 inch inner nodes, I wonder if you could build something out over time.
Right. Yeah, that might be fun. Yeah, there's such a wide variety. That's what makes it so exciting. It's really fun.
And so, yeah.
One of the things that we talked about earlier, musk maple. The Premna japonica is something that we see used a lot in the Gafuten books. We almost never see musk maple in the U.S.
No, we don't. We don't see privet. We don't see the musk maple. We don't see...
What are other classics from Gafuten that we don't see in the U.S.? We talked about the jasmine. We hardly ever see the jasmine. We don't see very much Eleagnus.
Oh, yeah, forsythia. I want to see forsythia.
Yeah, I have a dwarf one.
Forsythia would be fantastic for shohin.
Yeah, that's one of the fun shohin that I've made in-house.
They're great in winter and spring, so you get 2 seasons out of those.
Yeah, those are fun.
Okay.
I've really enjoyed mine.
Which reminds me of the winter jasmine, the other yellow-flowered species. I imagine that would be a good option for shohin.
Yeah. Yeah, man, there's...
Okay, we got a few options. So
yeah.
What's fun about thinking about it by the trait, fruit, by the, kind of type of tree, the category, the conifers, or whether by the, leaf character or somewhere deciduous or the flowers, it gives us more ideas for where we might find it. Because if you say beautyberry, it immediately makes me think, where would be a stock plant for cuttings? Who might be growing it? Since that's a fairly common one. Takshimazu is growing a lot of beautyberry in Southern California, for instance.
Yeah.
And I know various people have grown them at back east as well. So.
Yeah, a really, really nice resource for shohin that's given me a lot of inspiration is the modern what's it called?
The Modern
Bonsai book, and it's one of the best shohin books I think. We were talking about why is two reasons. It has really nice variety. You see all of these species that we talked about, plus really strange things that you wouldn't associate, like winter hazel, which has a crazy large leaf, or other plants. But the other fun thing about that book is that they really blow up the images. So that's
the best thing.
Yeah,
I think it's written by Junsun Yamamoto, and that's really the highlight. You get the bigger pictures. I think for looking at displays and some close-ups, you're not going to beat the Gafuten books. For a smattering of outstanding shohin displays, the Kokufu books are just, another outstanding resource. And for slightly bigger ones, you're going to need to go to a more specialty book, and that's where that comes in.
Yeah.
The Modern Bonsai.
Right. Yeah. Oh, this is fun.
Of course, this is making me want to go back to Japan. Gafuten's coming up in a mere...
I know.
What is this, May? So, we're only just over half a year away from the next big show.
I think we're going.
Yeah, I might have to start shopping at the ANA website. We'll see.
Yeah. And, we don't just need trees, but like you said, we need stands. Just, the variety of box stands is really fun. You have your classic box stand, which fits 5 trees, but then you have those ones that are smaller that fit, 3 trees?
So there's a lot of different formats of stands. There are stands for 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 trees, and so there's a lot of ways to bring shohin or kifu trees to an exhibit without having to go whole hog.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the other convention where when you have a box stand that fits 5 trees, one option is to set the pot directly on the box stand, or you can put every pot on a little mini stand. And one reason they do that is some people, I think, just like the complexity of it, but the other is it allows you to vary the heights of the trees subtly.
Yeah, and that's nice.
So if your balance is wrong, you can do that. Though I will say typically if you do one, you want to do them all because it looks wonky if you have some on stands and others not.
Yeah.
So the stands. And then that leaves us at pots, which we don't need to go into because we could gush about pots all night. But whether you're looking at antiques, whether you're looking at the painted pots, and people go deep into collecting the painted pots.
One of the biggest shohin potters, Tofukuji, which is, oh my gosh, talk about things that are hard to find. And
hard to find and budget breaking. Yeah. But we have, fortunately, tons of contemporary potters that love working small, so you can fit more in the kiln.
Yeah. Michael Hagedorn, who we visited today, produced some of my favorite, North American shohin
adorable
pots.
Little pots. Yep.
Yeah. Vicky's doing quite a few nice ones too. We saw one. I forget what tree it was in, but or where it was, but we saw a very nice small.
That's
Vicky
right.
pot.
That's what. Yeah, that's what it was. It was the probably the Trident maple we were looking at over by the house at Dennis's. I remember the VC on there. That's right. And so this is all just as Andrew and I wanted to talk about shohin because we thought if we're going to be talking about shohin anyway, we might as well record ourselves talking about shohin because we want to share our burgeoning enthusiasm on the topic.
Yeah, we're figuring out together. There's not crystal clear ways on how we build a collection.
There's no big head start here.
Yeah, and it's going to be a fun adventure to go on. Because things are so specific, it makes the hunt that much more challenging. And I think that just makes it fun.
So if any of you have suggestions or starting points, feel free to reach out to either of us on whatever platform where you can find either Rakuyo or Bonsai Tonight, and let us know if you have. Hey, I know where I can find these, or hey, I found one of these, and we'll definitely be mentioning the topic going forward.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun thing to share together.
Any last thoughts on shohin for the night?
Oh man,
go small or go home.
Go small or go home.
We got to do better than that.
Yeah.
We're kind of going big on the little trees right now. Andrew's got me a beat like crazy with his entire shohin bench right now, so I'm gonna have to.
Bench.
I'm opting for. I guess my first goal is a shohin plank, and then we can try to fill up a whole table, and then eventually a whole bench.
Yeah.
But I got to start with a plank.
Although I will say the best shohin in the garden right now is your black pine that you've grown for 28 years.
Yes, that one's 28 years young right now.
Yeah, so it's fun to have that one as a very temporary visitor for the weekend.
It looks good, and the hilarious thing is it's sitting under probably a nearly 4 foot tall loblolly pine that just makes it look like an afterthought or possibly a milkweed.
Yeah.
I think there's a milkweed in the garden that's bigger than the pine.
Yeah, probably. So.
All right. Thanks for talking shohin tonight.
Yeah, we'll chat soon.
Bye.
The music on today's podcast was brought to you by the fine folks at Blue Dot Sessions. Check them out at www.sessions.blue.
Da, da, da.